This video will examine the differences between simple interest and compound interest. When investing or paying interest, we normally assume we earn or pay interest on our interest. We call that compound interest, and it is different than simple interest. And so, for example, with compound interest, if we're saving for retirement, it will allow us to earn interest on the interest that we build up over time. In other words, we will be able to earn additional earnings on the amount that grows every year. In order to make the most of any investment, you will want to earn compound interest. With simple interest, we assume that you take the interest that is earned out of the bank or out of the investment. You're going to store that money in a shoebox with simple interest. You're going to withdraw it from the bank while keeping your principal amount or the original amount that you invested in the bank in there. But you're going to take all of your earnings out and you're going to store them somewhere else. And in some cases, maybe you spend those as well. Our interest for simple interest is only earned on the original principal amount. For compound interest, we assume that you're going to leave the interest that you've earned in the bank. You're going to leave your earnings in the investment so you can continue to invest that money with compound interest. You're going to earn interest on your principal and also interest on your interest. And for that, we're going to use our future value and present value formulas. Again, where our interest on the interest is interest earned on reinvestment of previous payments. One minor assumption is that the interest earned is reinvested at the same rate. And what we're trying to think about is the additional money that we can earn if we keep saving in the bank. In order to calculate simple interest, we need to add up each year's simple interest to get a total simple interest. And if we want to calculate the total, the first thing we need to do is take the amount of the investment or principal amount times our rate, and if it's yearly, then we would use an annual rate, and then times the total number of years or time periods to get our total simple interest. And so let's look at an example. Assume you invest $100 today in just a one-time payment or lump sum amount for 2 years with an annual 6% return. What amount of simple interest would you earn over that time period? So one way to think about this problem is that in the first year, you would earn $6, right? So we have $100 times 0.06, which is 6%. In other words, $6 per year. And for 2 years, that would mean that you would earn $12 in simple interest. We could also look at it a different way using the information from the previous slide. We take the amount of our investment times our annual rate times the total number of years to equal our simple interest, and we see that we get the same amount of $12. If we want to look at compound interest, we're going to assume we invest $100 for 2 years with an annual 6% return. And what is the value of the total interest, including the simple interest and the interest on the interest, right? So from before, we know that the simple interest is $12. And then we're going to earn some compound interest or interest on our interest from keeping the investment in the bank. And for this, we're going to use our future value calculation, where our future value is equal to the present value times 1 plus our r raised to the power of t, and in this case, t is equal to 1. And that means that we have $100 times the quantity of 1 plus 0.06, which means we have $106 after the first year. So if we leave it in the bank, that means at the end of the first year, we have $106. And the bank doesn't care how much money we have in the bank. They've said that they are going to pay us a 6% return. So we'll leave that $106 in the bank at the end of the first year. And for the second year, the bank will say, well, since you have $106 deposited, we said that we were going to pay 6% on that money. And so the bank will give you 6% on $106, and at the end of the second year, you will have $112.36. So, our $112.36 minus our beginning value or principal amount of $100, and what we find is that we had $12.36 in total interest. And we know that we began the problem. We had our original $100 in principal, we earned $12 in simple interest, and that means by leaving the money invested in the bank, we earned an additional 36 cents with compound interest. If we look at a second example, assume you invest $100 per year for 2 years with an annual 10% return. How much would you earn in simple and compound interest? So if we look at the previous example and assume simple interest, in the first year you would receive $100 times 10% or $10 in interest, and you would take that money and store it in a shoebox. And the second year you would still have your $100, and $100 times 10% is another $10 in interest. And so your value in the future with simple interest would be the $100 that would still be in the bank, the $10 from the first year that's in your shoebox, and the $10 from the second year that you've also stored, for a total of $120. If we think about this problem with respect to compound interest, in the first year it would be the same $100 times 10% or $10 in interest. In the second year though, because you keep that $10 in interest invested in the bank, you have your original $100, which we would call our principal, plus your $10 in interest, and so now you have a total of $110. The bank didn't care how much money you had in the bank. They said they were going to pay you 10%, and $110 times 10% is $11. And so that means that we started off with our original principal amount of $100, plus $10 in interest from the first year, plus $11 in interest from the second year, because we've earned not only $10 on our original principal, but an additional dollar from the $10 in interest from the first year, for a total of $121. If you look at the graph, what we'll see for year one is that we have our $100 in principal, and you'll notice that that maintains a constant level throughout the entire 5-year term. Right above that, we see our amount that is earned in simple interest. So at the end of the first year, we would have our 10% of our $100 or $10. And at the end of the second year, we would have earned 10% for 2 years, or a total of 20. And we see that for years 3, 4, and 5, $30, $40, and $50 respectively. After the end of the second year, we also see that we've earned a little bit of compound interest. And so after the second year, the number that we just calculated was that we had an extra dollar in compound interest. Our $100 in principal, plus our $10 in simple interest from the first year, plus our $10 in simple interest from the second year, plus the $1 in additional interest that we earned at the end of the second year by leaving our money invested in the bank. And what we see over time is that that amount continues to grow, right? Our compound interest will continue to grow over the amount of time we have that investment saved. And let's look at a third example. Assume you invest $500 in a bank today for 3 years and you expect to earn 5% per year. At the end of the third year, how much more would you have earned if your investment was computed with compounded interest rather than simple interest? And so let's first calculate how much we would have earned with simple interest. With simple interest, we calculate the principal amount that we had saved times our annual rate of return, and we do this for 3 years. And so $500 times 0.05 is $25. And for 3 years, 25 plus 25 plus 25 is $75 in simple interest. So we would have a total of our original $500 investment plus our $75 in simple interest. For compound interest, for the total value of our investment, we could use our future value formula, where we have our present value of $500 times the quantity of 1 plus r to the t. In other words, $500 times 1 plus 0.05 raised to the third power, which is going to equal $578 and about 81 cents. So the difference between these two investments is about $3.81. So by using compound interest and earning compounded interest, or interest on our interest, we've earned an additional $3.81. Now that difference may not seem like much, but it will add up over time. So assume you were able to save $5,000 today and save it for 45 years and earn 8% per year. With simple interest, you would have your original $5,000 in the investment, and with simple interest, you would earn $18,000 in interest. With compound interest, you still have your $5,000 investment or principal amount, and you would have earned $154,602 in interest, which is obviously significantly more than $18,000, right? In this case, you would have earned an additional $136,000 simply by leaving that compound interest in the bank over time. And so the difference between these two, simple and compound interest, may not seem like much over a short amount of time. Over the long period of time, the differences will really add up.